that can be done. There are also some unicells in the body, for example, in the cover of the bones, that can also, they are not stem cells, but can be used as unicells that can differentiate to something else. So that pretty much know. We also know that stem cells research is gaining popularity, and practice of transplantation of stem cells is very popular, which is great. However, there is a but here. Stem cells procedures, transplantation, are expensive, first of all. But second of all, they do not always work. I had a client who had a pretty bad damage to his eye. He lost his eyesight, and his eye surgeon told him that stem cell transplant can help him to regenerate some of the lost retina. So he went to Mexico, because that's where US citizens go to get the stem cell transplantation these days. So he went to Mexico for expensive procedure of transplantation of stem cells, which has been done successfully. Guess what? He did not regain his eyesight, but his arthritis improved a lot. So the body took the stem cells and decided to use them to fix something else. Not what we think should be fixed, but what the body's wisdom considered was more important. So his arthritis got better, his eyesight never got better. So stem cells transplant is an effective procedure, but it can be tricky at times. And also another downfall of that is that it's still in the hands of medical professionals. But think about it. Who is going to regenerate? You. It's your body. So regeneration is in your hands. So you should be learning how to regenerate. You should have the knowledge, you should have the wisdom, you should have the energy and programs to do that. So it has to be your job, it has to be your responsibility, not someone else's. But you cannot transplant stem cells to yourself. So that, to me, it's a kind of a downfall. So basically, the biomedicine at this point does not have the answer for you. What should you do in order to trigger regeneration processes in your own body? Basically, we don't have the answer for that. And to me, it's happened because biomedicine is so fixed on a physical body and replacing the lost parts, like it replaces lost parts in a car, that it overlooks where the regeneration actually comes from. And if we go deeper, then we will discover that regeneration does not initiate on a physical level. Regeneration initiates on the level of energy and informational fields, which we were talking yesterday and today all about. It's on a level of information and energy. That's what triggers regeneration in the first place. Unfortunately, biomedicine or conventional medicine doesn't study regeneration from that point of view. But not Russians. Russians did, actually. And that's what we're going to talk about. And look at that. This is actually a Bible picture of a man, or idea how man is constructed. Christianity, that's what I know. And I'm not sure how other religions look at the man as such, but that's a picture that is well known in the theology on Christianity. But look at that, just think about it. In the middle of a man is a spirit, and everyone knows it. So spirit is something that defines our identity. It defines who I am, what I'm doing in this world. It determines the connection to the consciousness, to the higher self, in Christianity to God, but it does determine the connection to something higher than us. That's the spirit. That's in the center, even of the biblical picture of a man, in the center. So what goes around is your personality. So your soul, which contains mind, emotions, and will, and intent, is secondary. And physical body is on the very surface of the whole thing. So what does that tell you? That tells you that spiritual, which is information and energy, which is non-material, non-substantial, is in the very core of your existence. So it has to determine the rest. Science catches up with the religion, and you already know that quantum physics pretty much makes sure that it catches up with the religion. Unfortunately, doctors don't know much of quantum physics. If they knew, they would look at their clients. Cannot call them patients, I'm sorry. Client is not a good word either, but there is no good word that I found. Heli, maybe. Einstein, long time ago, presented his most important, most well-known formula, where E equals mc squared, which links energy and mass. And we know now in quantum physics that in certain conditions, the purely energy, massless particles of light, photons, can actually turn into elementary particle of mass, which are called fermions. And fermions are particles like electrons or positrons. This is particles of mass or matter. But photons they're massless. So light can become matter, and the other way around. Well, certainly, of course, we know that certain conditions have to exist. Mostly it's high temperatures, and also the eye of the beholder or an observer plays a big role in that. So the one thing is clear. The whole process is not completely clear yet how it happens that energy becomes mass and the other way around. But one thing is clear, that it can happen, and energy and matter are interconnected. Let's look at this way. In the basis of existence, there is informational matrix. There is informational field that determines how energy is organized. So you can call it any way you want. You can call it consciousness. You can call it morphogenetic field. It is an informational matrix that determines how the energy flows. And energy flow will determine how matter is organized. So information determines how your physical body will be constructed. So basically, in the basis of regeneration, there are programs, there are informational programs that our body contains. Imagine that we have those programs. When we are born, we can regenerate a fingertip. Why can't we when we are 60? This program hasn't disappeared. It's still there. It's still inside you. It's still written in your genes, in your DNA. So for us, what's important? Important is to trigger the release of that program and to make sure that it runs and make sure that we have enough energy to support the process. So informational matrix organizes energy. Energy becomes physical body eventually. Well, that's again another confirmation. That's a quotation from the Bible, which says that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word is a pure information. So in the beginning was information. Information needs to be powered by the energy of your personality to become what we call the morphogenetic field, which determine what kind of form will be created. So again, yeah, we already went through that. In the middle of everything, there is a spirit with a pure energy of love, pure vibrations of love, and then that determines that had a connection through the heart. It's a heart connection always to your soul, to your personality, to your conscious mind, subconscious mind, to your will. So the spirit powered by your will, powered by the energy of your mind and your personality, will determine the condition of your physical body. So that's pretty much what we have to remember when we're talking about regeneration. So informational matrix is in the beginning of everything. We have to clean the programs, the body programs. Consider the body is a big computer. So the clean, defrag the body's computer, or register, do the registry cleaning for the computer. Improve systemic communication, and also supply the body with harmonious, well-structured energy, coherent energy. And then we can think about the physical body and put the stem cells in it. Maybe at this point, stem cells will go where we want them to go. Now, let's look what Russians did in the area of regeneration. And I'm not talking about the body regeneration at this point, but look at this. They actually regenerated 30,000-year-old plant that they got from the little seeds that they found in a Siberian permafrost, frozen for 30,000 years. So they took their little seeds and regenerated a plant that didn't exist for 30,000 years. Now, this little mammoth was found also in Siberian permafrost. They actually regenerated the mammoth blood, not the full structure yet, but the mammoth blood. And actually found very interesting thing that mammoth blood contains the antifreeze that wasn't known ever before that. So some kind of something that prevents the blood from freezing. Now they actually talking about regenerating, or it's not a cloning really, regenerating the whole organism in conjunction with Korean scientists, and it is going to happen if they manage to ship the, this little thing to Korea. What else they done? What's interesting also is that now the structure exists, which is called the bone cement, and the bone cement is something that actually, it's called hydroxyapatite, so it's a chemical substance. But when you put it in the bone and do the 3D printing, then what happens that the bone regenerates the complete structure. And the complete structure, I mean, with the blood vessels and even nervous cells. So the bone will regenerate on the place where the bone cement was completely. So the body can forget about fracture ever being there. It's not a scar. This is complete regeneration. Interesting enough? Sure, has a huge market for that. Yeah. And now we also have very interesting research on the pyramids, which you probably heard about, of course. Being in this wonderful structure, you probably heard of Russian research and Dr. Alexander Golod, who did build about 20 pyramids all over Russia over the period of 8 years and studied the pyramids extensively. His pyramids are a little bit different from what we know. They're different from this one or Egyptian pyramids. They are actually golden section pyramids. So it's a little different mathematical formula for building these pyramids. But the one that you see on the picture, this is actually a pyramid that's 44 meters high, I believe, and about 55 tons of pyramids. He builds them out of fiberglass. That's what he thinks it's the good material to do it. And 8 different locations. And these are the summaries of what has been found happening inside and outside of the pyramids. His pyramids actually managed to regenerate the entire ecosystems, not just the structures in the body, ecosystems, because they found the plants growing around the pyramids that were extinct in that area for many years. All of a sudden it starts growing. He found that immunity of the organism improves, regeneration capabilities improve, and that's why I'm talking about it here. He found that oil gets different chemical qualities, and they can get more of it. He found that seeds stored in the pyramid get better yield. And also, what is interesting, that less violence was happening around the pyramids. The prisoners who consumed salt and pepper, which were in the pyramids, displayed less violent behavior. And that was measured. That was actually published. Lots of studies on the physical qualities of different substances inside the pyramid. And very interesting, just look at that the water does not freeze inside of the pyramid up until minus 40 degrees. It doesn't freeze unless you shake it. If you shake it, it freezes immediately. But other than that, it doesn't. So, physical qualities of things change inside the pyramid. Things change outside the pyramid. So something is happening, and it's definitely not change of substance. It's energy and informational influences. But what is interesting about the pyramid for us is that regeneration capabilities of structures improve inside the pyramids and outside of them too. Now, I would like to point your attention to the very interesting research that Russians did in the area of DNA. Because they thought, okay, well, regeneration obviously stems from the molecule of DNA. DNA is a trigger point for that. So let's study what DNA is doing. But as Western scientists would cut the gene and transplant the gene and do the gene surgery, Russians concentrated on studying of energy and informational changes in the DNA, qualities of the DNA. And what they found was they actually studied not the 10% of the DNA that we know is responsible for protein synthesis, but the 90% of the DNA that now is considered as being a junk, because we don't know what it's doing. So 90% of the DNA, that's what they concentrated on. They also found that the DNA actually works as the body's internet. It can download information, it can give out information, and it can share it with the other participants in the network. So the DNA basically works as a body's internet. Very interesting also that they studied alkalines in the DNA and found that the patterns are very similar to human languages. They studied semantics, syntax, and the basic rules of grammar, and they found that construction of the DNA very much resembles the coding of human languages. And there is a very tight connection between language and the DNA. So our languages do not appear coincidental. So what we speak actually is written in our DNA. Isn't that interesting? Very much so. They work further, and what they found is that DNA actually emits coherent light. That's how DNA communicates. It has an ability to emit coherent, which is called the laser light. It's not your typical surgical laser, but laser means it's a light that is structured, harmonized. So DNA is capable of emitting a coherent light, which is actually modulated by certain frequencies. They now did experiment. They took a laser light, they modulated it with a language pattern, with a sound, which had certain frequencies, and they managed to change the genome. They watched changes in the DNA, so DNA will always respond to laser radiation, because that's what it does by itself. So modulated laser light can actually change our genetic information. And that's how DNA actually communicate with each other. That also means that now we have a scientific basis for affirmations, doesn't it? That our words that are written in DNA patterns actually can change